been keeping up with the turfgrass breeding programs and the marketing of the various companies. We've had a lot of different additions to our options when we're looking at the cultivars that are on the market. And one of the questions that we started looking at a couple of years ago with one of my graduate students is, you know, is there a difference in the wear tolerance if we're looking at, you know, high traffic areas on a golf course, athletic fields, whether it's football, soccer, lacrosse, that type of application? Do they differ in their wear tolerance, and do they differ in their divot recovery? And those are actually, you know, could be related and may not be. And it turns out from some of the work that there is some difference between them. Couple things that we did to look at this, and some of you may be familiar with these tools and maybe not. One of them is, well, one of the issues that we wanted to do is to have basically quantifiable differences in the quality and density. And we can do that with digital image analysis. We use this light box to take digital pictures, and if you were to look underneath there, we've got some fluorescent lights that we basically block out the sunlight. We can lock the camera down so that it doesn't change relative to the color of the grass. So if we have light colored grasses, that'll be translated accurately in the picture, and dark colored grasses will be also. That ability with the light box is important when we're looking at comparing genetic color of the grasses. So for something like wear tolerance and recovery, we really aren't worried about the genetic differences, but from a breeding program standpoint, we might be, and that's one of the things that the light box will allow us to do. We take the pictures, we take them back, run them through a computer program, and we can get some differences in genetic, basically the color of the plots. It works well for nitrogen type applications if you're looking at the relationship between nitrogen rate and the color of the plots. The other tool that we have out here that we use in this research is basically a divot cutter, and this is something that Dr. Brian Schwartz and one of his colleagues when he was down at Florida spent some time building. It's kind of difficult to replicate this. There's no this is one of a kind at this point, but we're getting close to having another one. I've been working with a guy to build another one for a guy out in Oregon State, but this, and if you, this is not, I don't think OSHA approved, but it's got a spring-loaded mechanism in here, and when you go ahead and pull the trigger on it, it'll cut some of the grass out of there, and we basically get a fairly uniform divot out of the grass that we do, you know, on a bunch of plots, and that makes it easy on guys like me, you know, that can't really hit a golf club real consistently, so I don't have to go out there and try and do it. Some of the other colleagues across the country have actually used golf clubs to do it. This makes it easy for guys like me. But we took these out for this study and did simulated traffic. I don't have a traffic machine here for you, but the simulated traffic was conducted with basically a John Deere air fryer that we modified. We took the tines off of a John Deere walk-behind air fryer, took a really nice 8 bias ply tire, cut it up into sections, and mounted some cleats to it, and then we just used the air fryer to pound the turf and create some traffic, so we get some of this kind of tearing and compaction traffic on compaction on the plots. Did that on half the plots. We had 3 different nitrogen rates. Quarter, half, and 1 pound. I think it was quarter, half, 3/4, and 1 pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet monthly. So we had the two different types of plots, trafficked, non-trafficked, and then we looked at the influence of traffic on percent cover, which we evaluated both visually and with the digital pictures. We looked at the divot recovery, and then made some just general observations or comparisons between the cultivars in terms of their performance. The cultivars that we had in this study, and I've got some printouts of this. This was just actually came out. If you guys get Florida Turf Digest, my grad student was surprised to find out that he made the cover of it. But Brad Williams is the student. He's out actually in Colorado right now working as an assistant. But Celebration, Floratex, Hard Run, Riviera, T11, TIF Grand, TIF Sport, and TIF Way. TIF Way we needed to have in there because it's been one of the industry standards since the 70s. And it's interesting. TIFWay performs well now. It still seems to be performing well for a lot of people. And in this study, it was competitive. It's not something that we would suggest that we get rid of right away. From a wear tolerance standpoint, looking at wear tolerance, the high performers, the ones that had the least reduction in percent cover, were Celebration, Hybrid One, and T11 in both in 2009 and 2010. TIF Grand was in there in 2009. So those performed well from a wear tolerance standpoint under traffic. They had the highest percent green cover. When you looked at percent cover, one of the things that we noticed is that there was actually a little bit of a difference in how they performed when you looked at a non-traffic plot versus a traffic plot. And that's where we saw some interesting differences. If you looked at where the percent cover that a plot had without traffic, and then how much of a reduction there was in cover once you added traffic to it, TIFWay does really well. TIFWay only lost about 1.5 or 2% cover by adding traffic to it. On the other end of the spectrum was Celebration. It lost about 10%. Now, that doesn't mean that Celebration looked bad. Those plots were still high visual quality. They were still performing really well. It's just a difference in what we were seeing was a difference in the canopy and how the canopy responded. But it was interesting. Basically what it showed is you have to have the entire picture. As I said, under wear tolerance, the highest performing cultivar was Celebration, Hybrid One, and T11. So they performed really well. TIFWay was one of the lowest performing cultivars in the wear tolerance, a lower performing one. The divot recovery was a little bit different. The best performing ones there were Celebration, Floratex, and T11. We looked at divot recovery over, basically tracked the divots with pictures 3 days a week over a period of basically a month. We went 26 days. The Celebration, Floratex, and T11 had 95% or better, 95% to 100% recovery in 18 days. The TIFWay, for comparison's sake, didn't reach 95% cover until 26 days. So you had basically a week advantage by using one of these other cultivars in your recovery of that divot from the day it was cut to 95% better recovery. And that, for some high traffic, high use golf courses or high use athletic fields where you're getting a lot of divots or cleat damage, could be a real situation where there would be an advantage to using one of those cultivars that can basically recover from that tearing and cutting action a little bit more quickly. But if you guys are interested, you can take a look. Like I said, I've got a couple copies of this. They're black and white. The Turf Digest article is online, so you can go on and look at the color version of it if you want, and ask questions, anything. If not, it's relatively quick. You guys are done early.